Hello, everyone. Today I'd like to talk about when political and economic correctness run amok in knife design. With me, I have a Pacific Handy Cutter. It's a basic utility knife design. This one is nicer than 95% of the ones I've seen out in use. This one was made in the United States in Costa Mesa, California. Basically, what these knives are an exterior sleeve that covers an interior sleeve that holds a razor blade. You insert the razor blade into the channel in the interior sleeve and then thread the interior sleeve through the exterior sleeve, and when you're ready to use it, you push it so that the little piece of the blade is showing. It's a very utilitarian design, and they're generally used in industries where you have to cut something like, say, cardboard here, because you can cut very thin cardboard with it, with that little piece of blade. My first experience with them was when I worked a part-time job several years ago, and I had the audacity to take a K-bar dozier folding knife to work and to cut some packing tape on a pallet to grab a product that we were assembling into another assembly, when my supervisor saw me and said, "Put that knife away," implying that the dozier folder was a, quote, weapon. We were then given these utility knives to cut anything from thin cardboard and tape to much thicker items that we should not have been using these on. A lot of companies see these as being politically correct because they don't see them as being more like a knife, even like a more traditional utility knife here, which in some circles is more on the, quote, weapon scale than the utility cutter is. Then you have the consideration of economic correctness, which is these knives are very cheap. This one was made in the United States. Most of the ones I've seen are unmarked, very poorly designed. The tolerances are much looser, and I'm sure they only cost, a quarter, maybe 50 cents at the most, including probably a stock of several razor blades. It's something that companies, they buy them in bulk. They don't particularly care about their workers because they're giving them a basic tool, and it's a tool that, for reasons I'll now explain, is actually dangerous to the worker and could actually end up costing the company a lot more, although they're willing to take the gamble. I don't like these knives in terms of safety for several reasons. The first of which is this small blade makes it much harder to control when you're cutting something thicker than cardboard. The problem of control is also made worse by the fact that this knife is literally a rectangle and has no ergonomic property to it whatsoever. It has no basic handle design like the dozier folder does, or like my Emerson would, where you have something thick enough that you can get a grip on when you have it in your hand and are holding it to cut something. When you don't have a decent handle design or any kind of choil or basically anything blocking that blade, you run the risk of your hand running up and this razor cutting right into your first finger, second finger when you're using it, because there's nothing there to stop it from happening. And this knife is so poorly designed in terms of the small blade that you're using more pressure to cut something. It's more likely to happen that your finger slides up front and gets cut. I think that the obvious design deficiencies in this utility cutter clearly illustrate why political and economic correctness should not be factors in knife design. You ended up with a knife that has such a small cutting edge, and an edge subject to dulling if you're not careful about replacing the razor, that you need to grip this thin handle even tighter than you normally would. This handle's so thin it's like laying strips of gum on top of each other, and there's no choil here. If you really are holding this tight and this knife catches on something, that blade is going to go right into your fingers. Was it really worth the small amount of money saved, or the feeling that it wasn't a weapon that made someone at a corporate level who will never use this knife feel good? It's just why I think that you're better off having the proper tools for the job and people need to stop being so afraid of things like a K-bar dozier. It's really not what I would consider a weapon, and it's a much better designed and much safer tool than this little cutter ever could be.